Hello friends, let us now learn some important points about the diuretics. In the diuretics there is loss of sodium and water. Diuretics, what do? They will excrete the sodium and water, and as a result they will decrease the blood volume. Once they decrease the blood volume, the cardiac output directly decreases, thus decreasing the blood pressure. The most preferred diuretic in hypertension is thiazide diuretic is the most preferred diuretic in hypertension. So first we will learn about the osmotic diuretics. So in the osmotic diuretics, the first osmotic diuretic is mannitol. So the mannitol is easily filtered. It is, see, if this is the glomerulus, okay, this mannitol should be freely filtered through the glomerulus and it should not be reabsorbed, and then we call it as a osmotic effect. It should also have a osmotic effect. So once you give IV mannitol to our body, so it has an osmotic effect. So that means I will just draw it again here so that it becomes easier. We have this is the glomerulus, this is the proximal convoluted tubule, then we have the loop of Henle, then we have the distal convoluted tubule, okay, then going to collecting duct. So we have the glomerulus and this is the arteriole, right? Now this mannitol is present in the blood. Once if you give IV mannitol, it reaches the kidney in the blood vessels, right? Now in the blood vessels, this mannitol is an osmotic agent, so it increases the osmotic pressure in the blood vessels. So as a result, because of increased osmotic pressure in the blood vessels, not just in the kidney, in different parts of our body, like in brain or in any cells of our body, it will these are the cell. So because of this increased osmotic pressure, the fluid which is present in the cell enters the blood vessel, and as a result it causes as a result the fluid now enters the blood vessel, right? So there is increased fluid reaches the blood from the cells, and as a result this increased fluid reaches the kidney, so there is increased renal blood flow. So because there is increased renal blood flow, the fluid which reaches the kidney will now go into the glomerulus and from there to the tubules. It is freely filtered into the tubules. Even the mannitol is also filtered into the PCT and DCT. So once it reaches the PCT, now the mannitol which is present, once it reaches the PCT and also DCT, because it is osmotically active or high osmotic pressure, it will now exert that high osmotic pressure here, and as a result the fluid which is filtered here, it normally almost 90% of fluid will get reabsorbed in the proximal convoluted tubule, but this mannitol will prevent this reabsorption of the fluid into the proximal convoluted tubule, and as a result the fluid and also the mannitol, both these are excreted out through the they are excreted out into the collecting duct and from there to the urine. So this will decrease the fluid volume which is present in our body. So it can be used in cerebral edema, so we can use it in cerebral edema, or if there is any places where a glaucoma, it can be used in glaucoma, or it can be used in cerebral edema. Okay, this mannitol is contraindicated in acute renal failure, and it is contraindicated if there is any cerebral hemorrhage. Okay, now this is about the mannitol. Then the next important drug are the diuretics which act on proximal convoluted tubule. Now I am going to draw the proximal convoluted tubule. This is the cell of proximal convoluted tubule. This is the lumen and this is the blood. Now here we are going to learn about carbonic anhydrase inhibitors. Now from the lumen, in the lumen we have sodium bicarbonate which has been filtered. This sodium bicarbonate will dissociate into sodium and bicarbonate. This sodium will enter the cell because it has to get reabsorbed, and it will give out potassium. That means in the presence of sodium H plus, or not potassium, hydrogen, in the presence of sodium hydrogen antiport, sodium enters the cell whereas hydrogen exits out. Now this hydrogen combines with this bicarbonate and it forms H2CO3. Now this H2CO3, in the presence of carbonic anhydrase, it forms water and carbon dioxide. This water now enters the cell, and even the carbon dioxide also enters the cell. Once the water and carbon dioxide enter the cell, both of these in the presence of carbonic anhydrase, they will form H2CO3. Now this H2CO3 again dissociates into HCO3 minus and H plus. This H plus goes out, and this HCO3 minus along with this sodium, this will reach the blood with the help of sodium bicarbonate symporter. Okay, now this is the normal cycle which occurs in PCT. If we give this carbonic anhydrase inhibitors, now these carbonic anhydrase inhibitors will block this step. So they will block this step, and they will also block this step. So as a result, they will at the end prevent the reabsorption of sodium and bicarbonate. So they will make this sodium and bicarbonate to be excreted in the urine, and as a result they cause alkalosis in the urine, and they cause alkalosis because of bicarbonate loss. There is alkalosis in the urine, and there is acidosis in the blood. So because the acidosis is due to the kidney, it causes metabolic acidosis in the kidney. Right? Now this sodium and bicarbonate will now reach the DCT. From PCT they now reach the DCT. In the DCT cell there is more sodium in the lumen. More amount of sodium will come to the lumen than normal. Normally this sodium will, if you see, this sodium will exchange with the potassium. In the DCT there is reabsorption of sodium and secretion of potassium occurs by sodium potassium antiport. But now because of this increased sodium in the distal convoluted tubule, this will increase this sodium. There will be the activity of this pump will increase, and as a result this causes increased loss of potassium. So as a result this will lead to hypokalemia in the blood. Okay, it causes hypokalemia. So if you see the main side effects of this carbonic anhydrase inhibitors, so side effects are, it causes hypokalemia, it causes bone marrow suppression, it causes metabolic acidosis and urinary alkalosis. Then this is contraindicated in liver failure, because in liver failure normally ammonia gets converted to urea, but in renal failure this conversion does not occur. So as a result this ammonia is actually present in excess. So this extra ammonia will combine with H plus and it forms ammonium ion. Because of this ammonium ion, this gets reabsorbed in the urine from the distal convoluted or from the tubule because of urinary alkalosis, which is present in the presence of carbonic anhydrase. Because of the presence of urinary alkalosis due to carbonic anhydrase inhibitors, this ammonium is reabsorbed. thus increasing ammonium even more in the blood, thus worsen. This ammonium ion can cross the blood-brain barrier and reach the brain, and they form hepatic encephalopathy, which is a fatal condition. Then if you see the uses of this carbonic anhydrase inhibitors, they will decrease the aqueous humor. So as a result, they can be used in glaucoma. They will decrease the seizure threshold, so they can be used in epilepsy, and they can be also used in acute mountain sickness. To counteract acute mountain sickness, we can use them because they are causing alkalinization of urine. This alkalinization of urine can be exploited in acidic drug poisoning. So these are the uses of carbonic anhydrase inhibitors. What are the examples? Examples of carbonic anhydrase inhibitors are acetazolamide. This is actually the drug of choice for mountain sickness, is acetazolamide. Then we have dorzolamide and brinzolamide. Dorzolamide or brinzolamide are used in glaucoma. Then we have dichlorphenamide, or we have methazolamide. Okay, so this is the important points about the carbonic anhydrase inhibitors. Now one liner is carbonic anhydrase inhibitors causes the maximum hypokalemia is mainly caused by carbonic anhydrase inhibitors. Right, now the next important thing is about the diuretics. Diuretics which are acting on loop of Henle. So in that first group we have loop diuretics. These loop diuretics are also called as sodium potassium ATPase inhibitors. So if you see these, this is the ascending limb of loop of Henle. Okay, so this is the lumen, this is the blood, and here there is a sodium potassium 2 chloride symporter. I am really sorry. These are sodium potassium 2 chloride symport inhibitor. Okay, so there is a symport here that will cause reabsorption of sodium, reabsorption of potassium, and it will also cause reabsorption of 2 chloride ions. Okay, so this is called as sodium potassium 2 chloride symporter. Now this potassium gets excreted out along with this chloride. With this potassium chloride symporter, with the help of potassium chloride symporter, this potassium and chloride is excreted out. This sodium is reabsorbed from the cell into the blood with the help of sodium potassium ATPase. This potassium can either go into the lumen, or it can even be replenished back into the blood. Okay, and so this is the normal pathway which occurs in our body in ascending limb of loop of Henle. So now if you give loop diuretics, these loop diuretics will inhibit or block this sodium potassium 2 chloride reabsorption, and as a result the sodium, potassium and 2 chloride are excreted in the blood. Okay, now there is one more thing that occurs in the presence of loop diuretics is paracellularly, that is here between the two cells. I'll draw it here. This is one cell, this is two cells. Between the two cells the gap present is paracellular gap. Paracellularly, in the presence of loop diuretics, calcium and magnesium will also come, and they are also excreted. And similar to the similar to the carbonic anhydrase inhibitors, this sodium will reach the distal convoluted tubule, and in the distal convoluted tubule, because of this sodium potassium antiport which is present, which will reabsorb sodium and excrete potassium, because this antiport, the action of this antiport increases, and as a result this will cause increased potassium excretion in the urine, causing hypokalemia. Similarly, there is one more antiport which is sodium hydrogen antiport, which will take sodium inside and bring hydrogen outside. This hydrogen is also excreted in excess in loop diuretics, and as a result you will see alkalosis being developed in the blood. So this alkalosis is metabolic alkalosis which is seen in the blood, right. So if you see, we will see the drugs of loop diuretics. We have furosemide. This furosemide has it has vasodilatory action, and as a result it is used in left ventricular failure and pulmonary edema. And the next drug, torsemide, this torsemide has this is the drug, this is the loop diuretic with longest half life. Then we have the drug bumetanide. This bumetanide is the most potent loop diuretic. Then we have ethacrynic acid. This ethacrynic acid is the loop diuretic with highest ototoxic level. So this ethacrynic acid also has steep DRC, dose response curve. We also have other drugs like we have pyrantenide and we have trypamide. Okay. Then we also have one more drug which are marsalil, which will cause marsalil is a drug which causes kidney damage, and as a result, because of this kidney damage, it has been withdrawn and this is not used now. Right. Now if you see the side effects, the side effects of loop diuretics are hypokalemia, hyponatremia, hypocalcemia, hypomagnesemia, and they cause metabolic alkalosis, as I have already said, and they cause alkalosis, okay, and they cause hyperglycemia, and they cause dyslipidemia. Okay, they will also cause hyperuricemia also. So these are the important side effects. So what about the contraindications? Because it causes hypokalemia, this is contraindicated in renal stones, because there is loss of calcium in urine. So as a result, this will again predispose to renal stones. In metabolic alkalosis, because of this hyperglycemia and dyslipidemia, these loop diuretics are contraindicated in diabetes mellitus. But one thing, if they are not contraindicated, actually not preferred, but you can use it, especially if there is left heart failure, or if there is left ventricular failure with pulmonary edema. In such cases we will use it. It's not that it is completely contraindicated, but we would not prefer it. Okay, so these are important things about the loop diuretics. One more important thing about the loop diuretics is we have furosemide is present, and I said bumetanide. This furosemide or bumetanide, both these are chemically sulfonamides. Because both these are chemically sulfonamides, if any person has allergic to these sulfonamides, these are avoided. Right. Now the next diuretic which is important is we will learn that in the next class. Thank you for watching.